Hey, before we start this episode, I want to give a quick word about the theme music. I'm going to experiment with the monetization feature on YouTube. I can't even try that with the theme music that I have, the amazing, incredible Johnny Mercer whatchamacallit song. I love it so much, but I can't turn on the stupid monetization with that thing on there. So I created some new original theme music. It was a little bit of a saga because did the theme music. I was going to try and sing it myself. And after several tries and listening to the results and realizing there's just no way I could listen to that every time I have to do an episode. So it was Mama to the rescue. Finally, it's like, I'm married to one of the most amazing singers ever, so I should just have her sing it. So she did. She saved me. And so she sang it. Right now, I got excited. There's some music to record, so it's a little bit long too. So for this episode, I'm gonna let the whole thing play, just so you can hear everything. So I can hear everything. And but after that, I'll probably cut it down to about half the length, the length that it should be, just to put the information at the beginning. So there you go. There's new theme music at the beginning of the thing. I hope you enjoy it. Check it out.
The goes out into the gazinta. That's how he spends his time. Sliding them faders till it sounds just right. Making sense of making records. For him it's easy as pie. It's making records with Eric Valentine.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Making Records with Eric Valentine. I am here in beautiful Vermont, just hanging out with family, enjoying the wonderfulness of Waitsfield, the Mad River Valley. So I thought this would be a good time to do an episode about setting up monitoring for temporary locations. I'm here. It's just a house that we're staying in, and there's no studio here. So there is some stuff that I want to get done while I'm here, and I'd like to have some sort of reasonable monitoring while I'm here. And I've been through this a few times before. When I've worked on projects and have to run around to various locations that are inspiring or whatever, and it may not be a studio, and so I have to set up quickie monitoring for myself. And when I'm doing pre-production or whatever, and so I have a little sort of process for that. This has a little extra component to it because in this round, I acquired some new speakers that I've never used before, and so I go through that process as well of evaluating some new speakers I've never heard before in my life. I want to try them out and see if they're going to work for me, and so there's a process for that, and then ultimately a process for setting up the listening space. So here it is. I'll show you, the space that I'm dealing with. Check it out. All right, so this is what I'm working with. This is what I got. So I got to make it work. There's a space upstairs, that could have been better. It's, a little more space, but it's really echoey, and I don't really have any acoustic treatment stuff at all available to work with. So I feel like this is probably my best chance. It's carpeted, most of the walls are untreated, but it just feels a little tighter, a little focused, be easier for me to really, hear just what's coming out of the speakers. Definitely some problems here. There's some real challenges with trying to make this work. I'm gonna try these Atom speakers. Never heard them before in my life. We're gonna try and see how that goes. And so this side, it's a flat wall along here. There's a little bit of a thing coming out here, but mostly the speaker is in front of that, so it's like it being in front of a flat wall. There's a little bit of a corner there. This speaker is just backed into a corner, and even just putting my head back here, you can hear it just sounds really, really different. And so there's going to be a lot of low frequency buildup in this corner, and I'm going to get a reflection off of this wall. And so, we'll see what happens. There's some ways to deal with that, and we'll see if it all works. We'll get into the options for trying to fix that in a second, but this is where I'm starting. So I chose these Atom T8V speakers for a couple of reasons. First, because I'm just inescapably a cheap bastard, and so these are these are like their real cheapy version of the speakers they do. And I used some A7Xs before, and I did enjoy them. They have a cool quality to the high end, and I liked them. It was one of my rounds of trying to replace the NS10s. This particular round wasn't totally successful. I ended up on that record going back to the NS10s and remixing things, but that was probably for a bunch of reasons, and not necessarily the speaker's fault. But I did kind of enjoy them. And so these T8Vs are cool because they reach down really low. They spec them down to like 32 hertz, and that's valuable information down there. And so, I wanted something that would reach down that far, and this is kind of the only thing that will do that, certainly for $600 for a pair of them. So, I was excited to check them out, so that's why I chose those. And so when I'm getting to know a new pair of speakers, I like to start off figuring out what I'm actually getting from just the speakers themselves and separate that from the confusion of what the room might be doing to it. And so there's the best way to do that when people are, designing speakers or evaluating them, they'll put them in what's called an anechoic chamber. So if you've never seen an anechoic chamber before, it just so happens that I have a really cool picture of an anechoic chamber. This is actually a picture of Grace's grandmother, believe it or not. So Grace's grandfather worked at Bell Laboratories, and they did all kinds of amazing experiments. And he, I actually don't remember his name. I only heard him referred to as Padre. He was part of the group of people with William Shockley that invented the transistor. So he was a pretty cool dude. And there's his wife. That's Grace's grandmama being subjected to some sort of crazy audio test in an anechoic chamber. So you can see she's on this screen floor, so it can be acoustically transparent. And there is, this same acoustic baffling. They call, these wedges, a lot of times they're referred to as acoustic rams, are on all 6 surfaces of the room. All 4 walls, the floor, and the ceiling. So there are no reflections of any kind in the room. Not easy to put together. So we're going to do it another way. Check this out. Okay, so welcome to the poor man's anechoic chamber. This is the way I've been able to do it. Anechoic chambers, as you saw, are not easy to put together. It's complicated. It takes a lot of effort. And so the best, quickest, easiest way to do it, just go outside. There's no ceiling. There's no wall over there. There's no wall over there. So far away, the sound just goes off into the forest, and nobody will ever hear it, or it won't bounce back into the microphone. I do get a reflection off the ground here, so there's a little bit of that, but other than that, it's really, really great, especially for evaluating the high frequency, stuff like that. So let's see what we get. I just want to know what I'm getting from this speaker before I put in the crazy ass corner and next to walls inside a room and all of this stuff. Just know a little bit better what to expect from this thing. So I'm using fuzz measure. I've talked about this before, and sadly the version that I use is not available anymore. The gentleman who made it sold it off to some other company, but I love this software. Got my little Earthworks microphone right here. And I'm going to start off just pointing it right directly in between these two elements, the low frequency driver and the high frequency driver. That's one of the important things that I like to try and figure out in this context before there's other reflections bouncing around affecting the frequency response, is where is the timing actually correct between the woofer and the tweeter for the crossover point that they have set. And so it can be different on different speakers. You know, they do the timing differently. And so then that really informs where I want to line up my ear to the front of the speaker. So I'm starting off with it just sort of halfway in between, so it's an equal distance from the tweeter and the woofer. Both of these guys will be the same. You know, if you put your ear down here, then you're going to be, it's a shorter distance to the woofer than it is from the tweeter, and it can affect, you know, that crossover point, you know, how they might phase cancel or something. So here we go, we're in the middle, let's see what we get. So here's the graph, and you can see it's just stopping at 20K. These speakers apparently go all the way up to 25K. I don't really care about anything above 20K, so I certainly can't hear anything above 20K. And then they actually spec in the technical data that it's supposed to go down to 33 hertz, so from 33 hertz all the way to 25 hertz. And according to my little test setup here, it's going down to about 42 hertz. So I don't know if it's just because it's outside or what's going on here. Maybe once I put it up against a wall or something, it'll reach down a little further. But you know, at 32 hertz, it's down 17 dB. So not sure what to say about that. 42 hertz is probably plenty low for what I need to do. Most of these kind of near field monitors really start crapping out in, you know, the mid 50s or around 50 hertz. So, you know, I'm plenty happy with that. And there is some stuff going on here. That's probably mostly just because of a reflection off the ground. That's the one hard surface that is still in play here, and so it is probably affecting this stuff. I put the microphone about 3 feet away because that's how far it's going to be when I have it set up in my little listening spot in there. I just wanted to replicate that, see what I'm getting. And so they say that the crossover point is at 2.6K, and so right now 2.6K looks like it's, you know, right around here, and we're doing pretty good. So we'll play with raising the microphone a little higher or lower and see if we can find something that's a little flatter, and then I'll know how high to put them relative to my ear in that setup in there. So here, I'm going to move the mic a little bit. So just to do the experiment, we'll go lower. See what that looks like, and I'm going to lock my extensor again. Okay, so clearly it's definitely starting to get out of alignment timing-wise between the low frequency and high frequency driver. We're getting cancellation at the crossover point, so that's definitely the wrong direction to go. Don't want to line my ear up, you know, at the low frequency driver. Let's go up higher. So now it's pointed pretty much directly at the high frequency driver, as best as I can tell here. And so let's see if that ends up a little flatter. Yeah, that's definitely clearly how they designed this thing. So this maroon one graph is definitely the flattest right where the crossover is. So I'm going to try and set this up so my ear is lined up with this guy. I also tilted the speaker up to try and minimize the interaction that you'd get with a reflection off the ground. I don't know how much it helped this stuff here where there's definitely some cancellations going on. I don't know, let's see if this actually makes a difference. Put this down like that. It's a little bit precarious, but I think we'll live. Okay, so now I'm gonna move the mic and get it so it's again pointed right at the tweeter. And in theory, we may have even more issues in this area here. Let's just see what happens. It's actually better. It's better in every way. Okay, so yeah, so tilting it up, maybe it was something weird going on with having a gap underneath it or something. I don't know, but yeah, clearly this is better, having it flat on the table. More low end in general. So there we go. That looks like about as flat as this guy gets, with at least with this setup. Yeah, that looks pretty good. This is all reflections off the ground here, all of this stuff. And that stuff should flatten out. You know, I think it's always important to know that the closer the microphone is to the speaker, the more you'll hear just the frequency response of the speaker and not as much as hearing the interaction of the environment that it's in. So let's do that experiment as well. We'll move it a lot closer. And still, I'm gonna try and just stay aligned with the tweeter. And so we should see this stuff flatten out here. So that's a better representation of, you know, how the speaker was really designed. People have gotten pretty good at being able to get stuff really flat when you're in a really neutral acoustic environment. So I'm also curious to see, it has some EQ adjustments on the back, how that affects things, so I can, you know how to use those. So here is boosting low frequencies 2 dB. See what happens there. Okay, looks like it's just a shelf EQ. Comes up exactly 2 dB, down the deep low end, starts to rise, you know, after 200 hertz. So it's still pretty much the same at 200 hertz, up about a dB at 100, and then up 2 dB by the, you know, down at around 40 hertz. Okay, so then let's see what happens with the high frequencies here. Okay, so this is really just the very, very high frequencies where the change is happening. No change at all in the mid-range at all, and so it starts to lift, you know, after 5K. So you don't even really start seeing a difference until around 6K, 6.5K. That's pretty high up there. So yeah, just a lot of extra air up there. That's cool. I don't think I would need that. It already looks like there's plenty of high frequencies, and in general, you know, I like to voice speakers with a little extra low end. So this blue curve here, I almost will certainly leave that on. Just feels more satisfying to listen to when I work on it. Unless there's something really crazy that happens in the room that's, you know, adding a wild amount of low end, I'll probably leave that on. So there we go. Now we kind of know what we're dealing with this speaker. Looks good. Looks good and flat. We'll put it back inside, see what it looks like once we put it in that crazy corner. All right, here we go. All right, so we're back inside. I got both speakers up. Got my setup going here, my little Apollo Twin. So the first thing I'm gonna do, and this really is like literally the first time I've even heard anything in this corner with these speakers. I have no idea what's gonna happen here. So I like to just listen to them first before I start graphing and miking and doing all that stuff, and just kind of see what I'm in for. So I have my little reference list of stuff. I think I shared it before in one of the other episodes, but these are just mixes that I know really well. I just put them up, listen to them, and see what it feels like. So here we go. Let's see what we're in for. Here's one of my favorites right here. No shortage of low end. I know this part of the demonstration is sort of meaningless for y'all because you're hearing it through a little, you know, iPhone thing, microphone, but I'm just here to tell you, no shortage of low end. Plenty of low end coming out of the corner here. So not totally, unsatisfying on that one, but and it sounds like I should be able to tuck some things in, which is kind of better if I'm able to rein in overt peaks. Then you get more headroom out of the speakers. If I'm having to like fill in deep valleys of cancellations, it's a little harder to fix because you lose headroom in the speakers. So let's see what else we got going on here. Some of my other good references. This one's good for, it's a very bright mix. Yeah, so that one feels pretty good. It's just not a huge amount of low end in it in the first place. So here's one from my past. There's a definite problem there. So the third note in that progression, the bass guitar vanishes, which I believe is a low E, somewhere around there. So there's probably, a pretty dramatic cancellation right around, 75, 80 hertz, somewhere in there. So we'll see what shows up in the graph on that. And then there's some cool, more modern stuff that's fun to check out. I've always loved this mix. That's just a lot of low end. It's really out of control. So, and then this is a beautiful. Yeah, so it's I think this is gonna work. It's mostly sounds like there's some really peaky stuff going on the low end. It's definitely low frequency heavy. I put all of the EQing on the speakers back to flat again, and so as you saw when we were outside, it's really pretty flat across with just a lift in the very extended high end. So so all of that extra low end that we're hearing is definitely a result of being in this corner. So let me start. I'm going to get my microphone out and we'll see what we can do, see what we're seeing, and see what we can do to fix it. All right, so here we are. I got my Earthworks microphone set up. I just put it, right where my head and ears are going to be. So this computer is going to be running fuzz measure, and then I have another laptop down here that you can check out. This guy. I'm going to be ultimately using this to come up with some EQ settings that I'll use to try and flatten out the speakers. And so that means that I'm coming out of the monitor output of the Apollo, which is running fuzz measure. That goes into this Antelope interface, this Antelope Studio guy. Goes through Pro Tools and here, comes out of the Antelope, and then goes into the Atom speakers. And so that's so I can actually get some sort of setting to try and fix some of this stuff. Ultimately, the idea is that I'll put that EQ setting on a master bus of what's feeding these monitors in Pro Tools when I'm monitoring stuff in here. It's not ideal, but it's totally workable. I just don't have any other external EQs that I can be running on these speakers the whole time while I'm trying to work on them. So it's the best I got. Gotta make it work. So let's see what we got. We listened a little bit. It sounded pretty crazy in the low end. There was certainly no shortage of low end. So in the Pro Tools session here, let's see. You know what? I'm gonna start a screen capture so you can actually see what I'm doing on this guy. Okay, so in here I have it set up where I can just pan to either speaker. So we'll start with the left speaker here. That one's probably slightly less crazy. Since it's not stuffed all the way in the corner. So here I am panned left. Da-da-da. Let's see what happens. All right, so there you have it. There, there's your low end. So look at that. That's like 40 hertz is plus almost 10 dB out here. Pretty stark difference. So here's the same setting. So here's 46 hertz where it starts rolling off. Very, very, very flat with the microphone close. So there's your low end, and look at that. So 30 hertz is essentially flat with the average of the rest of the frequency spectrum. So if I can tuck in some of these peaks and preserve what's happening down at 30 hertz, then we'll be doing real good here. So, and this is actually not that bad, I have to say. I've seen way, way worse in supposedly acoustically designed rooms. So we're not doing too bad. So this stuff in here, like these are probably reflections off of this hard surface here. Not sure exactly what is responsible for that. Maybe the ceiling, I'm not sure. We can try and figure some of that out as we go, see if we can flatten that out without having to EQ too much. I'm hoping to only address this stuff with EQ, just to try and get that in line a little bit. And then hopefully this other stuff we can do acoustically in the room with whatever we have around. So let's see what the other speaker looks like. Bam, here we go. All right, so again, no shortage of low end. It looks like the volume on this speaker needs to come up a little bit. All kinds of crazy stuff going on in here. That's probably just because of this surface and this surface all causing reflections that are going to cause comb filtering, in frequency response. And so here we got an average level playback, it's like -2. This stuff is peaking way up at around +12. So this is like, an extra 14 dB of low end just being caused by the room. It's kind of everything. It makes, really has a massive effect. I'm going to turn up the level on the speaker a little bit, try to match the volumes a little better. Let me see if I can do that without knocking everything over. There's a little volume control back here. I think I can adjust. Where is this thing? Okay, we'll try that. Try and do another sweep here. Okay, so that's looking better as an overall average level around 0, I suppose. It's good to know that where I stand relative to this microphone will totally change the response. So if I stand on the other side of it, you'll definitely get variations in the curve. So you have to try and stay in the same place. There's a pretty significant difference there, a big difference there. It's really, really sensitive to what's going on in the room. It's important to know. You get confused when you're doing this kind of thing. Okay, so here we go. Let's do some acoustic stuff. There's a couple things going on here. So before we get into the EQing, this is definitely probably the biggest issue. So I'm just going to try and kill all of this stuff. I've got just a couple pillows I can throw up and see what happens. So here's this guy right there. We'll put that up there. Bump my microphone. Okay, I got another one here. I'm gonna put that one there. Put that. And so let's see. I'm getting the right place around the microphone. Let's see what we got. So that helped a lot. You can see way, way flatter across the mid-range. Huge, huge difference. And it's all because of these hard surfaces that are reflecting back, time delayed and causing weird peaks and cancellations and stuff again. So if I take these out, there it is, all crazy again. So let's keep these in here. You know, while I'm mixing, nobody's gonna be hanging out on the couch anyway, so fuck them, you know. Okay, so now, one thing that is getting exaggerated, there's a thing going on here. When the pillows are in here, we get this massive cancellation. So I'm not exactly sure what that is, but let me just see if it's still there. Yeah, so again, you know, we're improved here. It looks like, yeah, this one was really, that was a good pass there. There's so many small variables that can really affect this stuff. So, but let me try, the other place where I could, you know, do some absorptive stuff is in between the two speakers. When I was set up at Hunk of Shit Studios in Northern California, I had my 813Cs set up, and in that room, I built Soffits for them, and I've told this story before, but just amazing monitoring in that room. They sounded incredible. And basically what I did, between the two speakers, so the Soffits were just in the corners, I filled in between the speakers with just insulation, just like, you know, 3 or 4 feet deep. It just killed everything in between the two speakers. Seemed to work in that room, so we'll try it here. Okay, I got some couch cushions. Again, this is not really going to be set up for some hangout mixing, so so fuck them, you know. They can check it out when I'm done. Okay, keep the microphone. So here we go. Bump it up. Let's see what happens. Okay, pretty cool. That definitely helped. Helped fix this little you know, canyon. So we're pretty close here. You know, I think maybe I don't know if there's anything else I can do to optimize these guys, but you know, I feel like that's gonna be close enough for me. Let's see. I'll try one more. Yeah, you know, that's about where we're at. So we're doing pretty good. Let's start working on the other side. Now that we have more baffling up and see what we're getting over here. Yeah, I think we're pretty good. You know, there's this same little guy here, and I'll work on that with EQ. But I don't have as many options for doing acoustic treatment over here. I could try something above the speaker, but I need to have the space to have the Apollo Twin, have something going on, you know, stuff that I can use there. So I'll try to throw in a pillow up there, see if that does anything for us. Okay, let's see what we got. Huh, may have actually made it worse. That's, you know, that's the thing about acoustics. It's extremely complex. You know, it's very difficult to know exactly how they're all going to interact. It gets so complex, and so you know, there are some basic principles that I think you can rely on. That generally, if there's a lot more reflections in the room, it's going to be more anomalous. There's going to be more problems, more peaks and valleys. If you know, absorb more of those reflections in the room, things will tend to flatten out a little bit, but there's a certain point where it gets very difficult to predict what's going to happen. So I just fucking experiment. I just start throwing up pillows, and, you know, ultimately, like, if this was really going to be a more permanent thing, I wouldn't use couch cushions and pillows. I'd put up a proper, you know, acoustic absorptive panel, you know, in these positions around the speakers. I could probably even do it more thoroughly, do something on the ceiling, all of that stuff. Actually, that's another thing we should try. Let's just see what happens. We'll just hold something up over here and see what happens. Okay, yeah. So that's still, I don't know what's causing that. Yeah, it's not coming off the ceiling, and it wasn't up over the speaker. So I'm just gonna have to work it out. Just try and improve it as best I can with EQ. So that's the next move here. We're gonna start getting into EQ mode. So let's do that. So we're going to continue working on the left speaker, the one that looks like this, and see what we can do with this guy. So I'm going to start off with an EQ that's going to just sort of bring this whole shelf of stuff down lower. And although I don't think I want to turn this stuff down. So let's see, how am I going to do? Okay, yeah, I'm going to do a little window thing. It's going to just like do something like that. And so this will be the EQ for my left side. And so this is from basically 30 hertz to 100 hertz. And so this is one of the things I love. Okay, so here's my 30 hertz mark there. So I gotta move this thing down a little bit like this and make it a little narrower. Yeah, something like that. And so, you know, this stuff is up an average of, let's see, if we're trying to get to here, this stuff is up an average of about, so we're just gonna go down 6 dB and see what happens. Like that. Okay. So there you go. Pretty flat. And I think probably all I'd have to do, I may just fill in this hole a tiny bit right here. It's at 48 hertz. So I'll do a little boop here. 48 hertz. And it's probably up just like 2 dB. Gotta deal with this thing. That's a bummer. So 117 hertz on this. Pretty close. So we'll go 6 dB there, and not quite so wide, or narrow, not quite so narrow. Okay, so let's see what we're doing now. Okay, looking pretty good. We'll go a little more on this guy. I mean, the general rule is to not go much more than 6 dB. So maybe we'll just widen it a little bit. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep widening it. It'll have less phasing issues if I widen it. There's a certain point where it's going to start pushing this up too much. Okay, and so we'll go up 1 more dB here. Okay, yeah, so that's about as much as I would do right there. Okay, so now I gotta bypass this guy for now. Turn this dude on. So this is gonna be my right side EQ. Pan over to the right. So let's see where we're at again with all the pillows and stuff in here. Okay, so again, here we are, just a massive mountain of low end. So I'm probably just going to go similar thing. You know, this just creating this trough here, probably down 10 dB. I don't mind cutting a lot. Boosting is where I get concerned. Okay, so we want to go a little narrower. Let's see, where is this? That's 4. Yeah, okay. So we've got to go a little lower. We want to go down to about there. So a little wider. A little wider. Yeah, something like that. or something like that. Okay, we'll go minus 10. And I forgot to mention this last time, but I'm doing this where it's a 96 dB per octave slope for this EQ move, and that's what creates this trough instead of what you would normally see, which looks like this. This is a normal bell curve, kind of cut boost looking thing, and they just have this really cool feature where you can create these very steep walls on each side of a cut sort of bell shape. So so let's see what happens with this. Okay, cool. So it looks like I can raise the frequency a little bit. Let's do that. Let's try this. Okay, that's looking better. I think I can probably still go up higher. 58. Let's try this. Okay, cool. That looks better as an overall thing. We'll just keep going down a little bit. Actually, ultimately, that might actually be a pretty good lift for the low end. I do like. Okay, yeah, that's probably good. So I think I'm going to try and fill this in a little bit, like I did on the other one. So the middle of this is what? It's about 160 hertz, something like that. So we'll go 160 hertz. Pretty narrow. Let's see, we'll go maybe 3 or 4 dB. Let's go a little higher. Still a little higher. Yeah, so I'm at about 180 hertz now. Yeah, that feels pretty good. So that's where we ended up on the right side. And so we should probably compare the two sides. Okay, so that's where I ended up on the left side. And so both of these need a little fine tuning, I think. So it looks like the right side still probably has a little bit more low end overall. And so I'm probably going to do, so there's like 0.7 of a dB back in. So let's see what that does. Yeah, that feels a little closer. Maybe I'll try doing a little bit more here. I mean, this is definitely getting into the danger zone. This is an 8 dB boost. Not something I would recommend. Although, actually, hold on. Let's undo that. Because the other speaker has a peak here. And I bet when I have both of these going, there's a good chance that they'll balance each other out. So, these two, I think these are going to sort of cancel each other out. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to have both of these speakers going with their individual EQ settings on them. So I'm just going to have to go for it, see what it sounds like. So next step is I'm going to save these EQ presets. I'll put them on the computer that I actually use for working on sessions, and see how it sounds. Okay, so I'm set back up on this computer. The microphone's out of the way. I put those EQ settings into one, master fader. It's on my 1 and 2 output. So that's always going to have to be on there while I'm monitoring. And when I'm capturing mixes and stuff, I'm going to have to capture that on a track, inside the computer. And so there's no processing being done on this master fader other than this EQ, because I'm going to use this stage in all of the various stages if I'm monitoring and mixing and stuff. specifically for making sure the speakers sound right. So any other processing that I'm doing cannot go on this master fader, or it'll be confusing when I'm A/Bing to things and stuff. And also, I would not be capturing any of the processing that's on this master fader. And so, ultimately what I'll do is I'll create, an auxiliary fader that has all of my mix bus processing, whether it's EQing or compressing, whatever going on, and that'll just get recorded onto its own track that'll be sending to the 1 and 2 output and going through this EQ, which is just an adjustment for the speakers. So I had a chance to listen a little bit. I imported some of my reference stuff here, and I got this as a dual mono instance of the FabFilter Q3. It's cool because you can actually pull up the presets that I created on the other computer. I just airdropped them over to this computer, put them in the folder. They popped up right here where I have all my presets. Yeah, there it's here. This was me trying to find the folder. Sorry about that. I'm just having trouble finding the folder. So then, and so you can go, when you unlink this dual mono guy, let's see, am I remembering the name of that? Multi-mono, that's right. You unlink these, so I can pull up the left side and then select, the left Atom speaker EQ. I can go to the right side and then select the right Atom speaker EQ preset that I had created. And so the left and right sides are being EQ'd differently because they really needed it, because of the, there's zero symmetry in how they're oriented in the room. They're really in very different places in the room. So they needed this radical difference between the two sides. So you can actually see the difference between the two sides on these EQ settings to try and balance these things out. So the end result is I had this EQ on there. I ended up just turning up the low end a little bit. Again, I like to have a little bit of a lift in the low end. It's just more satisfying to listen to for me. The speakers don't sound so shrill. It doesn't matter what they are, whether they're the Atoms or my 813s or my new Strausses or whatever, any of that stuff. I like to have just a little bit of extra low end in the room. It's just so much more enjoyable to listen to when you're in there mixing all day. So, I put it on and started A/Bing through a bunch of stuff. Feels good. Low end feels tight. They'd be fun for me to listen to all day, and I think I'm good to go. I think this actually worked pretty good. So, this is definitely not meant to be like the end-all, make the most perfect monitoring thing in the world. This is just kind of a quickie. I'm going to be here for a little while. I have a few things here and there to work on. I want to have some monitoring that's going to be useful. These speakers are unbelievably affordable. For what you get out of them. And ultimately, once they're backed up against some walls in the corner, they really are reaching way down there, flat down to around 30 hertz. I was able to get it down there. And with a little EQing, compensate for the room, it feels great in here. I'll definitely be able to do some good work in here. So there you go. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye-bye. This many angles and different, depths and distances of reflections. It's very hard to know. Hold on a second. Wow, okay, look at that. That actually survived. Beautiful.